My name is Adriana Correa, and I first started yoga through Vinyasa Yoga, Baron Baptiste Yoga, and probably 5 years into it, I was looking on the internet and I found a low back workshop that Marian was offering. I signed up for it. When I came to her low back workshop, I had a hamstring injury from a Vinyasa Yoga workshop. And I mentioned it to her after the workshop. I said, Marian, my hamstring is in agony. Marian said, have a seat, sat me down on a couch. Using my yoga mat and a few other mats, she propped me up, moved me, had me do a couple simple things, and then she said, okay, you can go home. I said, thank you, and I went home and relaxed, slept. The next morning I woke up, no pain. First time that I had ever had a hamstring injury heal in less than 24 hours. And that along with what I learned in the low back workshop is what then made me commit to driving 45 minutes each way to her Tuesday night classes in Center City.
Okay, I am Helen Chenofani-Petros, and it was a pleasure to meet Marian many years ago as a customer, and then as a yoga instructor. She came in. I had rheumatoid arthritis very badly in my youth and suffered a lot with that for many years, since I was like 10 years old, or probably long before that actually. It started up. I dealt with many different things, had surgeries, tons and tons of crazy medications. At one point in time I was doing a little bit better, but I was still in pain and on medications, even in my 30s. I met Marian one time. I didn't know it. I woke up in the middle of the night, or in the morning, and my knee was bent, and I didn't know why. And I didn't have any pain in my knee per se from the arthritis, but there was something obviously wrong with my leg. I went to the doctors. He tried to shoot it up. I said, it's not, there's no fluid, there's no inflammation, there's something wrong with my leg, but I can't straighten it out. It's very painful to straighten it out. And eventually I was walking around with a bent leg and on crutches for like a couple of weeks. And they were thinking about doing surgery. Why, I don't know exactly, but and meanwhile they don't even touch your leg. They're just like, they look at you, they try to prescribe medications, and that's where it ends. I said, well, what about physical therapy? Maybe something? No, nothing. So Marian came into the shop, and I was here working, and I was on a crutch because my other leg was starting to bother me because I was really out of whack. So she said, Helen, come up to my studio. I said, what do you do, Marian? She said, I am a yoga instructor, but I think I can help you. I said, okay, fine, tell me when, I'll be there. So I walked up with my crutch, and she spent maybe a half hour with me, stretching me in all different ways, not necessarily straight on my leg, but all different ways. She rebalanced me, and just gradually my legs started to straighten out. She kept on pulling it and doing all different things, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing that she could do this. And that was it. I mean, that was, from that point on, I was her student. She owned my soul. And so I was always so thrilled, and I was compromised because I couldn't bend my knees. So I couldn't do a lot of yoga positions, but she was always very helpful in trying to help me do things that I could do, and always had a very positive attitude about all the things that you can do rather than focusing on what you can't do. So she was wonderful, and I've gone to her many times through the years, to straighten out a problem, whether it was my back or my neck or something that was bothering me, and she's always been there for me. And she's a great person. She's studied under the best. She's an absolute idol of Mr. Iyengar, and he's taught her well.
It's very exciting to work with you, even now, because now I've learned more through practice.
Mm-hmm.
Iyengar said, if you don't practice, it doesn't work.
Right.
He said, you never know when you're going to have that practice. It's just something, it's the grace, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't get it, you don't deserve it. But if you want it, grab both hands.
Yeah, it's there for the taking. You just
Anything.
have to take anything on.
Yes.
Well, I tell you one thing that was amazing with, when I was in Marian's studio, the people who came through there, I was very impressed with people who had serious back problems for many, many years and absolutely were like totally transformed. Not only just because of the pain, but their whole demeanor and attitude, that they didn't have to guard their back constantly because they were strengthened. And that's what yoga is really about, is strengthening and stretching and toning and in a gentle way, not in a lot of repetitive things or anything like that, but it is it's a wonderful thing, and I was amazed at all the different things that you've healed, and I believe you were an integral part of my healing my rheumatoid arthritis, because I have no rheumatoid arthritis now. It doesn't, and I lost an eye to rheumatoid arthritis.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, this eye was blind because of that. And that was all in my youth. I mean, I was like 6, 7, 8 years old dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, and in the 50s, they didn't even know what it was, or that children could get it, and they didn't have a way of testing for it. So, my sister and I were identical. Well, we're not identical. We were twins, and Marie and I, she started out with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was just shortly after that. Got the same thing. We were both, I think, probably from my mother. She had a very troubled pregnancy, and I think all the stress from that probably created that whole scenario. And then I don't think the foods were very good in those days, and nutrition and things like that. So I think that's how we both got it so young. It's an autoimmune disease, and they say you never get rid of it, but guess what? You do. You absolutely get rid of it. It's gone. I don't have it. I don't even think about it anymore. And I'm not only just yoga and different things that I do, but it's a mindset also. And I think when you're physical and you have the right mindset, you can pretty much look anything off. That's just my feeling about it. And that yoga was an integral part of the whole healing process for me. So, thank you. She was cutting edge at that point in time because nobody was doing what she was doing. There was no one around doing what Marian was doing.
So she was an innovator for sure.
Oh, yes, very much so. Now everybody in the Brothers doing yoga, but not what Marian was doing, and to the level and the intuitiveness that she had to pinpoint and know exactly what someone needs to be done.
The figure is carved from a salvaged timber. It's a piece of Philadelphia's history architecturally, but probably yellow pine that grew in Georgia or South Carolina and was brought here over 100 years ago to be part of a structure here in Philadelphia. I always relate to materials and wanted to carve something from that single piece of wood that really brought out the growth rings and the spirit of the tree. I'm very deeply influenced by Japanese Shinto and the early Japanese carvings that were all done from a single block. So I wanted to get a figure that was poised and present and introspective, all from just this old timber. My name's Roger Wing. I live in Philadelphia. I'm a sculptor, a wood carver. I also work in stone and ice. And the piece that I gave to Marian is a variation on a theme that I carved in ice in Alaska, 10 feet tall, in about 2000. And the theme of that piece was Spirit's Mother. And it was trying to acknowledge spirit and the maternal, feminine embodiment of my spirit, and having been gifted to me from my mother. And because Marian's always had a very special place in my life, I wanted to give her an acknowledgement of that gift of spirit.
When I do this, look what happens. What does it do? Look. Now watch. What did it do?
Just aligned you.
It bounced, yeah. That's scary. Guess where I learned that from?
I guess Beeks was the man.
With smacks. Smacks and quacks. Carry on. Okay.
Well, I first came to yoga as a student in California and was drawn to it because of physical awareness. As a figurative sculptor, I need to find myself in my own body in order to find the form in a piece of wood or a stone, and yoga just seemed to be a natural complement to my practice as an artist. I hadn't been looking for a physical practice or a spiritual practice, but it just sort of dovetailed so well into all the things that were going on in my life at the time that meeting an Iyengar instructor at that time was perfect. And Julie Williams taught me for a few semesters, a few quarters, and kind of spoiled me for all other yoga teachers that weren't Iyengar teachers from that point on. I'd taken other classes and been in and out of this practice and that practice, but always wanted to come back to an Iyengar practice. So when I came to Philadelphia and found that Marian was here, senior Iyengar teacher, I got enrolled in her class as quickly as possible, and never been disappointed with any of my interactions with Marian, because she has the stuff, she has the genuine article, and it's always been very rewarding and fulfilling to come and be a part of her practice. So as a sculptor, being able to see proportions and alignments and being able to project from my own imagination into a stone or a material, I have to see myself in different postures and different positions and find something believable, something that looks real or alive or authentic. And the thing about Marian is that she not only has this yoga practice, but she also has this great appreciation of art and culture and connections with the world that go into music and architecture, and just it connects with so many different points in my life. The house that I live in is a great case in point. I live in the house that formerly belonged to Harry Safarbi, who for 50 years painted and taught at the Barnes Foundation and was Marian's painting instructor and art appreciation instructor at the Barnes Foundation. Well, is it coincidence that I moved into his house and bought it from his daughter? Well, now, thanks to Marian, we have an original Harry Safarbi painting hanging on our wall. It was a gift from Marian, so that a painting by the artist who preceded me and lived in the house for 50 years hangs on our wall and carries his spirit forward in the house. Well, we took a great trip to the Morris Arboretum together.
Oh yeah.
We visited the sculpture, and learning about the work of Bob Engman from you was really treasured that visit and memory.
We went to his house.
We also visited Bob Engman in his house, and as a sculptor trying to break into public sculpture and public art, meeting him as a great teacher and mentor was a huge privilege for me.
We were there a long time, weren't we?
We had a nice visit.
I think we went for 5 minutes. We came back a couple hours later. Was Nancy there at the time?
I think she was.
Yeah. But she didn't stay with us.
We went there kind of early in the day, and it was very informal, very casual. I think he was a little taken off guard by our arrival, but he was very gracious and a great host.
Oh, did we tell them we were coming?
I think maybe at the last minute.
Yeah.
It's kind of how we roll.
I think it's really, when Iyengar talks about wings of the eyebrows and your wings, Iyengar said, think of the wings, and you do, like that, he said. Yeah, he said, your wings have to carry you where you never know where you're going. You know the sculpture in the station, that one with the long figure? I always look at that at the time, and I think of Iyengar doing this. He said, lift from the back, but you can do it by how you have to work do it from here, do it. Put your fingers there, and you open up. Always work from the left side of the back, and then you bring the intelligence to the front.
That's these little things, these little adjustments that
Happens
always
every time.
bring like greater alignment greater confidence, greater poise. It all integrates. It all, one thing feeds another. So my health, my artistic practice, and seeing Marian all sort of benefit one another.
Thank you.
Let me start here. So many yoga practices are about looks. You know, how do you look in a certain posture? How does your posture, tune or your body? Or there's a lot of vanity yoga. And when I met Marian and first took her classes, I could tell this was an instructor who really cares about other people, and that she really empathizes, and that her practice was very deep and resonated on a level that wasn't about surface appearances. It wasn't about looks or the transient, but it was about getting to know the person, getting to know what moved and excited them, and the things that maybe needed help, needed fixing. And Marian, through that deep empathy and genuine compassion, really saw to the core of what was going on with me and helped me in a way that was genuine and authentic. And that's a rare thing. It's a treasure.
You always, from the minute the class started, you were completely present. And we didn't always know. Sometimes you said, okay, put out your hands. Or you'd go like this. And then you would start. The hand, this, that, boom, 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 boom. And you would just guide us. And it's, you were going through the hands. Sometimes, I know the first time, because I'd never been taught that way, I was like, oh, my hands. But then, at the end, it all made sense.
Does it make sense now?
It makes sense now, absolutely.
Why?
Yeah. Just the awareness, the presence. That's what, I always feel like you're this little voice on my shoulder right here, because I would always hurt myself, getting out of my car, or turning around, and then I pull my neck, and little injuries that I used to get just from not paying attention slowly went away over the years. And I always feel, sometimes I'll say, I feel like Marian's like this little voice on my shoulder, and it's just reminding me of how to walk, pay attention, what's going on behind you, what's going on in front of you, beside you. And that's invaluable.
Thank
Because
you.
I do feel like it's kept me, safe
Now don't look, where are your hands right now?
on my legs.
So what do you want to do with your left elbow? What's the difference between the left elbow and your left thigh? So you have to do what? Left elbow, you had an injury. What did you want to do? How did that happen? The left elbow with an injury.
I'm not sure, because I always have to, whatever a hunter, sometimes he goes to jump off something that he shouldn't, or go walk off a slide, and I'll have to reach in and stop him, and I think that's how I did it.
Did he hurt himself?
No.
Did he cry?
Probably because I told him no, yeah.
You told him no.
Yeah.
Does he listen?
Yeah, sometimes.
Now, does Nick listen?
All right, we're cutting.